Hello, welcome. I hope you can all hear me well. And welcome to Live with Aaron Ross. That is me. I am going to spend some time critiquing some of my own photos this evening. So let me know what you think as we go through this. If you have questions, jump into the chat. But yeah, so for me, every year I go through and try and look back on the year and decide what my best photos were. And so what that turns into is a calendar for my next year. And so I'm generally picking 12 photos, one for each month, that becomes my calendar. My own personal calendar, not something that is shared out anywhere, um, but yeah, and so I have those from the last couple of years. I have spent a little bit of time looking back at them. What's nice is by doing this, I'm looking back and seeing how I've progressed, what I liked, what I don't like anymore, if I would do things differently. So it's been a while since I looked at some of these photos, um, but we're going to dive in. Know that this is from calendar year 20. Wait a minute. Calendar year 2017. And which was a pretty great year, to be honest. We did quite a bit of travel, which was very cool. We had some very, very fun experiences, which we will get to. So they're not necessarily in any particular order. We're just going to work through them as they are in this folder. But that, I think, does it. So I'll give some context around the photos as we go through, but feel free to ask questions. Let me know what you think of the photos. Are they horrible? Was I amazing? Have I gotten worse since then? Maybe. Um, but yeah, I think that does it for a little bit of an intro. Why don't we go ahead and jump in? So this first image is of a bear in Alaska. Now, we got to go on a trip to Alaska because my mother in law had retired, and it was pretty spectacular. We had amazing weather. We got to see some pretty cool things, and this bear was one of them. I am obviously pretty close to this bear taking this photo. I did have my telephoto lens. At the time, I was shooting on a Nikon D5300, which is now retired but is back on the shelf over there. And I was using a Tamron 70 to 200 2.8. So that's what I used to capture this photo. And if I can remember what I used for a lot of these, I will share that. I did make notes of that prior to this, but I will share a little bit about what I was using and how I was able to make some of these photos. So this photo was able to be made in this way because we stopped by a like refuge or an orphanage effectively for some animals. So this was on the way to the cruise ship, but they had all this massive area just reserved for these animals that were being rehabilitated for various things or kept there because they had lost their parents as cubs or all sorts of things. So there is a fence between me and this bear, but was able to get relatively close in a way that you wouldn't if you were just out in the open, which is wonderful. And being able to get that sense of the strength of that bear is very cool. So for me, as I look at this image, and there's a lot of great memories with it, but from a photographic perspective, I think there are a couple of things that stand out. One, there's almost too much space to the right hand side of the image. It You don't really know where it's going or what it's looking at. There's just this open space, and you're not getting the full body of the bear either. So you're kind of missing something on one side or the other. I think it's okay to have open space and negative space in an image, but then what's in the image, what the subject is, needs to be prominent. It needs to be intentional, and I think that could have been a little stronger with this image. So again, I do like the colors. I think this well exposed. I think the focus is great. Maybe if I got in the bear at one point looking at me as opposed to looking to the side. That could have helped as well. But for the first image of what we're looking at, I think it was pretty great. This was right as we got there. Again, we were on our way from Anchorage to the cruise ship. And so we really hadn't even started our trip yet. This was like day one. So you'll see some other images from Alaska in this session, but that's the first image. So image number 2 is also from Alaska. Going into that trip, I had one photo in mind. I wanted to get my version of an Ansel Adams photo, something that's black and white, a massive landscape, mountain peaks, something like that. And so this was my first attempt at that, and one that I'm pretty proud of. This was, again, before we even got on the boat. So something I was able to check off the list. And then the rest of the time was just stress-free, being able to capture and make the images that made themselves available. So with this one, I'm standing on one side of a lake. You have obviously the lake in the foreground and this peak that still has snow on it. We went in August, so it's Alaska. Obviously, you get snow at any point, and it sticks around for a while. So there are some glaciers and things like that as well, but just everything coming into that main point, that main peak right in the center of the image, and you have these darker mountains out on the side, really helps bring that focus in. I think I would probably edit this photo a little bit differently today than I did at the time, and I would also consider, I know from other photos that I have and from memory that there was quite a bit of foreground options there, and I may have tried something of getting down a little bit lower and including that as opposed to just starting with the water. So something to consider, something I would try at least. But yeah, this was one I was proud of when I made it, and something that I look back at fondly. And another one from Alaska. This is from the boat, and we were up at one of the glaciers that comes right into the water, and you're so far away that this was really challenging to make happen, because usually by the time you heard a glacier crashing down into the water, if you looked, it was already done. It already happened. The sound just took a little bit to get to you. And so for me to be able to hear it cracking, or I don't remember exactly how I was able to make this happen, but I was there pretty much ready to go, just scanning, waiting to see if I could see part of the glacier calving is what it's called. And I was able to get it right as it fell into the water. So I put this in the fastest frame rate that the Nikon D5300 could go. I don't remember exactly what that is. It's not super impressive. It's not that great of a camera. It's not designed for this. But I was able to just rapid fire some shots as this fell and able to capture the moment as it made impact and splash the water everywhere. To me, this photo captures the force of nature, and something that I really enjoy about it. I think looking at it now, I would edit this slightly differently. Some of the things up in the top of the photo are a little distracting. Some of the dirt and other things that are on the glacier take away from what you're supposed to be looking at of that piece falling into the water. As well as I think some of my highlights off to the side, the right side of the image, are a little blown out. So I would just edit this a little bit differently, try and change some of that to really bring your eyes into the piece that's falling. Remember, as we're going through these, let me know what you think. Put your thoughts down in the chat, and subscribe as I have more photography videos coming your way. And if you want to check some of those out, behind the scenes videos, other things that we're working on this channel, go ahead and check those out. But moving along, I think this may be our last one from Alaska. I could be wrong on that, but this photo is of a mountain called something like Rhino Peak, or it reminds me of a rhino horn. I don't remember if that's a memory or a fact, but you know. This was taken out of a helicopter. this was one thing going on this trip that we knew was an excursion that we could go on, and it's it's one of those that you just kind of have to do it. There's not many opportunities you're going to get like that in life to be able to have those views and have that experience. So we got to go in a helicopter ride up over the glaciers in Juneau and land up on a glacier, hang out with some dogs and dog sledding and things. So it was an amazing day. And this was just taken out the window on the way up. And to me, the thing that is potentially missing from this image is something happening in the sky. The sky is a little bit boring as there's not a whole lot of clouds going on, but had that been the case, had there been clouds, we probably wouldn't have been able to do this excursion. So a little bit of a trade-off that you have to make. You have to have those clear days to do this stuff safely. So also say if you zoom in on this image, the focus is on some of the closer mountains and not necessarily on the peak, and so I missed just a little bit on that focus. But it's one that you're not getting to set up on a tripod and check things and zoom in. You know, you're in a helicopter, you're moving, and you got to do the best you can. This is also, I know this is a cropped image because some of the sun glare was hitting the curve of the helicopter glass window, and so there's some of that ruined a little bit of this image. But with this crop, with this composition, I really like it. It again brings back memories, which I hope is something that you think about as well in your photos and your photography. And what it means is that we're supposed to be capturing moments. It's not always about the technical elements of it. It can sometimes be about memories and should be about memories. So moving on, this is here in Chicago in, I believe, the late fall, early winter, and getting the perfect golden light hitting some of the buildings as the sun was rising. And I remember being there. I am not a morning person, and so getting up and being able to have this place pretty much to myself and just the quiet of the morning in Chicago was pretty special. This is a photo a lot of people take, but I was happy with the lighting that I was able to capture at this moment, and the reflection you kind of see on the bean. And yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about this one besides that. Sorry, I got an itch there. Yeah, I like it. You let me know what you think. In this calendar year 2017, we also got to go to Costa Rica. My brother-in-law got married there, and so we went down to Costa Rica, and we went on a little boat cruise, just like it was an hour, 2 hours, something like that, to see some of the nature. And there were wild monkeys around, and was able to snap one of them. This is also one that misses focus just a little bit. If I zoom in, you can see that the back leg is in focus, and the eyes of the monkey, the face of the monkey, are not quite as sharp as they could be. So they're obviously moving fast, and that is a little bit hard of a situation. You can't always get those pin sharp, but I remember I was using a lens. I actually think I was using a manual focus lens on this. It's instead of, I don't think I had the 70 to 200 on this trip. I had an older 70 to 300 f4, I believe, something like that. That Nikon makes or made, and so this was the best I could do with manual focus with a moving monkey. So I remember again being there, being hot and sweaty out in the jungle. It felt like, I don't know exactly what it is, rainforest or something, but yeah, I do like the composition of this. I think it's pretty simple. Put the monkey in the middle and take the photo. I do think the leaf that is right in the foreground, right at the bottom of the frame, is a little distracting, but other than that, I think edge and things creeping into the edges of the photos, there's nothing really there. But yeah, so just missing focus a little bit, and that one leaf is probably all I would change about this if I could go back. This is also in Costa Rica, and going on another boat tour or tourist adventure. We were at one of the harbors, and there's all these fishing boats that had crazy different things sticking out that I don't know anything about that marine life and what any of that actually is. But all of the colors of the boats just really stuck out at me, and I think I just snapped this one on the way walking to the boat that we were actually getting on. So um, that that does it for that one. I do notice that there's some that, again, one of the antennas or sails or whatever it is sticking out at the top of the frame on this one. I wish I could take that back and actually include it in the frame and not have thing cut off, but I do like this one. Moving on to London. So I was just trying to take a photo of Big Ben, and I got a bird flying right through, which was perfect. It was classic London weather. It was cloudy and moody, and so that's what you get the sense of. You also see the big red buses that are just classic London, and this was right before they started some of the renovations and work on Big Ben. It's now been covered up with scaffolding for a long time. Um, but it's so I was able to be there right before that happened and make some photos of Big Ben and Parliament um, with it not covered in scaffolding. So some of it is, there are other photos from that trip that the other side of Parliament is covered in scaffolding, but I was able to capture this one. I think I would probably crop this down a little bit. There's a lot of sky on this that's a little unnecessary, as well as just maybe a little bit of the river. I would maybe just crop it down, consider maybe a square crop, or maybe just a little bit shorter than what this currently is. This is a photo of my wife on that trip. I don't remember exactly where we were, but in the market, I believe, and we were waiting on other family members, and she just sat down on the stool, and I thought I had her center frame and captured us in that moment. So I like that the benches aren't the same either, that one has a back and one doesn't, and I don't know what Punch and Judy is, but I like the colors and the blue from her jeans kind of tying together with the sign. Again, it was still that cloudy and moody London that we think of, and you still get that feeling in this photo with her jacket and hands and kind of tucked in a little bit. But yeah, maybe this could use one other element, or there's some reflections happening in the glass that maybe I could have worked on a little bit in editing, cleaned up some of the stuff in the on the ground, but I don't think I would change too much about the composition of this photo. Abbey Road Studios. This is also very similar to that last photo. It's very straight on and center focused and or center framed within the composition. And we did get to go to Abbey Road Studios. You can go in; they have a gift shop. There's a little bit that you can do there. And yeah, as we were leaving, I remember seeing this door was open, and this isn't the door that tourists get to go in. This is, I believe, the actual door to the real side of the studios, the active used part of the studios. But for me, I'm a big Beatles fan. I wrote a paper on the Beatles in high school. And so being able to be there, we obviously did the classic photo where you went and stood on the road itself in the crosswalk. But being able to be at the studios was a wonderful time for me. And I am happy with this photo. It is the slightest bit off in terms of not being centered. If you look closely at the handrails on the sides, those are not even 100%. And so if I were to go back and redo this photo, I would just try a little bit more to do the best I could of getting that as even as I possibly could and as centered on that door as I possibly could. We also were able to make it out to South Dakota in 2017. We went me and my wife love going to national parks, and we're trying to go to all of them here in the United States. And so we drove from Chicago out to Badlands National Park in South Dakota. And this was on one of our hikes. You have this nice leading line of the trail that leads you up into the Badlands. There's enough going on in the sky that doesn't distract from the actual mountains, but it's not just a boring blue sky. So this is one that I like. I wish there was something maybe a little bit more interesting going on in the foreground. If you had maybe a smaller version of one of the mountains and or a rock of some sort. I also could have had my wife walk out there and had somebody in it. Obviously, this path has you imagine people walking on this path, and so having her walk into the frame maybe could have added just that one other element that could take this photo to just that next level. On that same trip, this was my first attempt and first experience ever doing Milky Way photography. And wow, was I impressed with what you can see at out in South Dakota. Now, again, this was with my Nikon D5300. It's not an amazing camera. It is not something that pros are using. It's a pretty old camera. They have like 3 or 4 versions in that 5000 series at this point. So I just what I want you to take away from this image is that you can use the equipment you have. We talk a lot on this channel about just getting started, and that means using the equipment you have. There are a couple of things that I would do differently with this one. I think I let the shutter go for just a slight bit too long. When you zoom in on this, some of those stars are starting to have some motion in them, as well as right in the center of the frame at where the land crosses into the sky. There's I believe a power line or some power lines going on, and there's the pole that's holding up the power lines. That's a very simple thing to remove in post-processing. I don't know why I didn't do that at the time, but I could easily go back and fix that in this one. This obviously gets that grand element of the sky. It doesn't get the Badlands. It doesn't get the Badlands himself in it. So that's something as well to consider. Is I think we were at our campground when I took this, but had I just walked a little bit over, I could have used some of the mountains that are so unique to the Badlands and really made something even more special. So again, this is my first time doing that Milky Way photography, night skies, and so I had a lot to learn, still have a lot to learn in that area. I don't get to do that very often living in a massive city, but I was impressed and very proud to be able to make this photo of the Milky Way. Because also, I'm a space nerd, and I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid and had NASA's bedroom. So it makes me excited. And that, I think, is all of the photos. Let me just double check. Yep. We'll pop that one back up there. That is all of the photos that I am going to review today. We will go ahead and pop back over here. And so I want to do these a little bit more often than I have been, have you guys join me and talk through photography, any questions you may have, and ideas, critiques that you may have. If you have photos that you want me to review, you can submit those to me as well. Send me a note on either Twitter or Instagram. Follow me on both of those. Let's hang out and just do this a little bit more often. So again, remember to just get started. Use the gear you have. I now have upgraded to other stuff, but this was mainly taken with, I think all of these were taken with the Nikon D5300, some with a nicer lens like a Tamron 7200, but a lot of these were taken with either kit lenses, or I think I had a 24 to 85, which was I think the kit lens for like the 610 or something like that, and which is one of Nikon's old um, full frame cameras. But it was the kit lens that came with that, so I got that used and on eBay, and it's just what I had available, and was able to make some pretty great photos. So again, use what's available, just get started, and have fun with it. So until next time, go ahead and subscribe and just get started. We'll check you all later.